The 2024 season has come to a close as the Georgia Bulldogs fall to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish 23-10 in the Sugar Bowl. And I'm here to just share a few of my immediate takeaways from the game. At the beginning, let's get the big part out of the way. First things first, to the winner goes the spoils. Congratulations to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and their fans. It was a good game. You guys showed up, represented your school well, and you're moving on. So best of luck to you. Now for my Georgia Bulldogs. Here's how I think this thing shook out. The other day, I posted a video where I thought about what might have to happen and how I thought the game might go. And for the most part, I feel really good about that video. Everything pretty much I said was going to happen that I expected to see is exactly what we saw. I saw that Georgia would not allow Notre Dame to run the football the way they have run the football the majority of the season. And that's what happened. I didn't think they would run it well, and they didn't. The two ballyhooed tailbacks, which are great players for Notre Dame, really didn't get much going on the ground. But Riley Leonard did some damage. But it wasn't on called quarterback run plays. It was on, broken plays or plays where he made the pass protection maybe didn't break down, but there was nothing open and he made plays with his feet. So good on him. We all knew that was a possibility. But even with that, he carried the ball 14 times. And there were some people thinking he might carry it 20 or more in the design run game. And I just didn't think that was going to happen, and it didn't. But he did hit him for that one big play on the quarterback draw. It went for like 30 yards, and I believe it led to a field goal. So, he did damage. But most of it was done on escaping the rush or at the end of the game there when Notre Dame was running the ball to try to maintain the clock. So I feel like I had a pretty good beat on that one. Riley's greatest rush impact, though, was on those broken plays, which I kind of thought was going to happen, and that's what happened. So what else? Gunner, I thought, was great for Georgia. Gunner Stockton showed up and did exactly what I expected him to do and what I expected Georgia to do, which was throw the ball around. They were going to run the Georgia offense, right? Not that they were going to throw it 50 times, but inside the mechanization of the Georgia offense as it had been all season, you were going to see that. What I didn't see that maybe I thought we might see more of was them moving the pocket, rolling the pocket, that sort of thing. We didn't see a whole lot of that, and we really didn't see a lot of Gunner in the called run game. They were going to let him throw the football, and I think that more than anything else drives home the point I was making, right? That these are the plays he's comfortable with. He wants to throw it. Let him throw it. We're not out here having to run him a whole bunch. And I'm sure there was some consideration given to you really don't want to get him hurt because then you are behind the 8 ball. So, I'm not surprised that Georgia threw the football as much as they did. The final numbers were 20 of 32 for 234 yards and a score. I said if he was going to throw the ball, odds are it was going to be to the boundaries, which he did, but he also threw it over the middle. He made good decisions, and he made good throws for the most part. There were a couple that were just on the back hip of the receiver, and those passes were broken up, and, that is the kind of thing that you can't say it's excusable, but it certainly isn't a surprise, right? This is a guy making his first start. For the most part, I thought Gunner did a great job, and they pushed the ball down the field like I thought they would. At once, obviously, to Arian Smith, and then they had Dylan Bell for a big play. Dylan drops the ball, but then Georgia manages to overcome that eventually and score. So it was just one of those situations where I knew they wouldn't sit on Gunner. I knew they would run the Georgia offense, and, that's what happened. The bottom line in this game, though, is the thing that cannot be well, first, let me make a mention about the physicality of the game. Everyone said that they expected this to be a physical game. Everyone expected it to be a low-scoring game. Both of those things really held true. Notre Dame was a very physical team. They played physical both offensively and defensively, even though they were a little bit undersized. And that's one of the things that I think I didn't get right, or Georgia didn't make me right on. And that is I expected them to commit to the run game a little more. At the end of the day, Georgia didn't do very good in terms of average per rush. It wasn't very high. I'm going to double check the stat here. Yeah, a little over 2 yards a carry. So that just shows you that they didn't really commit to it. I think they ran it right at 20 times. So I would have liked to have seen a little bit more in the run game to balance that offense a little bit. But the way the game went, maybe that played into it too. So I wish they'd run it a little bit more. I think there was something to be had there, but Notre Dame did a really good job with movement and things like that, where they sniffed out the read option and maybe the quarterback draw opportunities that Gunnar would have had otherwise when they did try to run the football that way. So kudos to Notre Dame. They did a good job there. The most obvious takeaway here, though, is that Georgia had 2 turnovers, and one of them was obviously a killer because Notre Dame repeatedly in a window at the end of the first half and at the beginning of the second half had a short field and made big plays. And that run of time there, less than a minute, I think, in total game time, wound up being the difference in the football game. And there's a reason I want to point to that a little bit later because Georgia's warts showed up again. And when I say that, what I'm referring to here is the tackle play, offensive tackle play, specifically left tackle, and the inability to consistently block the speed rush off of that edge. Now, here's where Gunnar being a new quarterback may have showed up as well. Like on the sack fumble that led to the touchdown, that was supposed to be a quick pass, right? Get the ball out of your hands. And Gunnar even said as much in the postgame. He's got to be quicker with his footwork, get the ball out. So that is a little bit on him and his mechanics and just not being as sharp as maybe he could have been. But take nothing away from Notre Dame. The kid made a good play, knocked the ball out, and then Notre Dame executed, put the ball in the end zone. And so they have a field goal, sack fumble, touchdown, and now Georgia's on shaky ground going into the half. And then, of course, Georgia kicks the ball away to open the second half, and they give up a huge special teams play. So if you turn the ball over and you lose the special teams battle, odds are you're not going to win the football game. Even with all of that said, Georgia still had an opportunity headed into the fourth quarter. The game was right there. They'd come back and made a good drive, gotten a touchdown. So now you're looking at it like, okay, the Dogs could go get this thing done. But that's where another one of the warts of Georgia showed up again, where we had drop passes and just a lack of execution that would have made those drives been more sustainable. So at the end of the day, the same things that bugged Georgia all year, the bugaboos that they had that cost them games, reared their head in this game. You can't lose the turnover battle and give your opponent short fields. I mean, the statistics tell the tale in that regard. Georgia outgained Notre Dame throwing the football. Notre Dame ran for more yardage than Georgia did, but the Dogs almost tripled them up in passing the football. And efficiency on third down, which is another area that Georgia had been pretty good at this year, they just couldn't get it done tonight. And a large part of that had to do with what Notre Dame was doing, but it also has something to do with execution. So it's one of those situations where it's a little mix of both. At the end of the day, though, I have no issues with the way the Dogs represented themselves. Obviously, circumstances were a little wonky with everything that happened down in New Orleans this week. Thoughts go out to those impacted by those events. But it's a situation where it's kind of like the injury thing. Next man up, you plug them in, you hope they can do their job. Georgia practices disruptions and being off schedule when something comes up that you don't expect. This was a perfect embodiment of that. I expected Georgia to show up and play well, and I feel like they did in terms of managing the impacts of everything that happened in New Orleans. But like I said, kudos to Notre Dame. They did a good job, got the victory. I think that one of the other things I noticed about how Georgia was the bigger team and had the better roster top to bottom, I think those things held true. When you looked at them just on the hoof, you could see that Georgia was the bigger team, but they didn't play like it. And I'm not sure in all cases. And I'm not sure if that's because they didn't lean into that run game a little bit more and try to wear down the smaller Notre Dame defensive front. Maybe that is why that didn't play out to the advantage the way you would hope on offense. But on defense, the Dogs, every time they had an opportunity to get Notre Dame in third and long, you could see that roster advantage, that talent advantage, right, in the way that Georgia was getting after Riley. They couldn't do anything on third down. I mean, until late in the game, Notre Dame was 4 for 14 on third downs. And that was mostly because when they got behind the sticks, Georgia did a good job getting after Riley Leonard. So you could see that. The problem is, because of the turnovers and then giving up the lightning strike on the special teams play, the Dogs gave Notre Dame a short field. They didn't force them to drive the ball repeatedly down the field for their points. And therefore, that advantage as far as being able to get after them with a more athletic unit wasn't able to produce more fruit for Georgia. But that's Georgia's fault. You turn the ball over, you give your opponent a short field, and then you don't do what you need to do on special teams, odds are you're not going to win the game. And that's exactly what happened. Notre Dame Fighting Irish, 23-10, beat the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia's season's done. Notre Dame is moving on. And we will look at all that stuff about what's to come for Georgia in the days to come. But for now, I'll say it one more time. Congratulations to you, Notre Dame. I'm proud of this Georgia Bulldogs football team in what was a very challenging season, both in schedule, on the field, and in terms of all the things that you deal with in the game of football, like injuries and those sorts of things, and they fought through it well. They end the season SEC champions, but the greater gold eluded them here in 2024. That's all I've got for now. You'll see me again soon. Until next time, go Dogs!
Told them, how about them fucking dogs? That's what I told them.